Expected to make it. So
Logical Raptors fanatic.
shoot trying to miss. Like every shot
Logical Raptors fanatic.
try to make it. So I was gonna act surprised.
A fun guy. Obviously,
Logical Raptors fanatic.
love the game of basketball. I mean, it's just more questions you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
Hello, real ones. Mike G back here with Logical Raptors fanatic. Project Truth always. And today, finally, we have our somewhat conclusion. I hope to eventually make conclusions, like full out conclusions of the decision and the fallout and look at all of it when it's done, but I want to keep my videos strictly on proven results and what facts truly exist. So it keeps the watchability and the aging factor of certain videos. It lengthens it, so it gives a chance for people. Like, a lot of the stuff I did in the summer is still very valid and has been aging really well. So if you want to check out any of that stuff, obviously the audio and production quality ups through the videos because I'm developing as a creator too. But the information has been solid throughout, right? And I think that's the big key that I'm giving people, and I want to continue to offer that. And everyone knows you can always speed it up with the 1.25 speed, or if some of the older stuff's a lot slower tempo, so you can even up that speed up if you need to. So technically, like, some of the videos, they seem long, but condensed on a faster speed, they actually take quite less time. So anyways, back to the subject at hand. Banton versus Flynn. Let's dive deeper. Enjoy.
First of all, have you had any further discussions on the plausibility and likelihood of playing in Toronto this year?
Yes, we continue to have a lot of discussions about this, and our hope is that we're playing at home. Yeah, we have no interest. We have not looked elsewhere. We are not going to look elsewhere. We're trying to play at home. Yeah, that's the goal for us. And I told Larry and Adam and even Prime Minister Trudeau that playing away set us back a couple years, and we know that when we're ready for that challenge. Playing another year somewhere else will set us back 5 years. Yeah, we're not trying to do that. That's not.
So that was interesting. And it's funny because we spent a year in Tampa, and okay, yeah, if we made the playoffs the next year, how does that set us back? Well, let's get into it a little bit more. But we talked about mentors in part two, which had a lot of groundwork for the reasons for the conclusion after. But part one was more of, this is where the connections are going to come in with player to player. But we need to lay the groundwork for what was going on that year, right? So Flynn was drafted after the bubble, right? And we actually were looking at, probably that was Lowry's last year, right? So having like the greatest mentor the Raptors have ever had, in a sense, and having 1 year left of him, we need to get a next, like a grandfather in some more of Lowry and see if we can't take this prospect to even the greater heights than VanVleet was, because then he'll have VanVleet continuing to talk to Lowry and still get advice on the guys. Lowry said he watches every game. And so, interesting enough, right? He still has a connection through to our team through VanVleet with the advice he gives them. I'm sure they talk about everything, every player, who's this, who's that, and stuff, and they share a mind now in a sense. He's he almost kind of hinted at it when he says, what do you talk to with your best friend? Or like, what do you talk about with your best friend, right? And that's pretty much everything and anything, mainly everything, right? So it's like ultimately, I think he's still connected in the picture, but having him here in person, directing and still dropping knowledge bombs directly, like we said, a respected leader really matters. And at that point, there was no one more respected than Lowry, right? And we needed to kind of maybe use our first round pick. It wasn't the highest pick, so I think we were always kind of taking a chance. We had a lot of great forwards in the pipeline that were going to take up those minutes at forward position to develop through, right? I think if we were able, if Precious slipped, we would have got him, and I think Masai was looking at maybe some different things pushing up. Who knows, right? We all know that he coveted Precious highly, and Miami took them at 20. But so when we moved down the food trough in a bit, talent wise, they look at talent as in groups. So obviously there was a group with probably Flynn and Banton or Bain, sorry, Desmond Bain. And because of Lowry's year there, they chose to get a point guard. And I think I'm going to go into what kind of point guard and why they chose him in a second. But let's get into the mix of things and introduce another Masai clip to direct where we're going with this, right?
Don't necessarily fit the mold or what you guys vision as a team, but are really talented. How do you balance bringing in guys who are talented but don't necessarily fit and just adding talent versus the vision you guys have for the roster?
That one is beyond me, so I'll leave that to Bobby. But that's Bobby's job, not mine. Me, I'm doing the athletic guys, the long athletic guys. It's crazy. The eye, like for talent and fit, like on a team, and sometimes it's not necessarily like what you even like see out there. I totally like agree with you. It could be like a shooter that you're putting that's not as athletic as these guys. But we want to play on both sides of the court. Like that's really important, and it's just a fine line. There's a lot of luck to it. When you try to find those guys that actually like fit, really, really fit, and we're hoping, we hope that I trust our scouts, our player personnel guys. They've done an excellent job, and hopefully we'll continue to. If we can't find them, we will develop them. That's what we're hoping. Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of play out something in a sense, and this was a older like a clip I showed previously, but I want to refocus in on the point made here about fit, right? Who are you actually trying to fit? Like we're talking about fit, like what is this fit? Like what are you fitting to, right? And I think the understanding you need to fit talent around your highest and best talent. And that's where the setback came in, right? I think the plan changed completely, and we're adding in another higher talent than now we have to surround and rebuild our kind of roster around and change up different projects that we were working on and different guys that we kind of selected before in this kind of phase because Masai started this plan when Kawhi left. That's when the last major kind of decision of who the team was going to be built around the next following however many years, right? And then now Scotty is really an exceptional talent. Like, I'm gonna get into it. I kind of dropped the master hint theory plan in Will Lose stream when David Thorpe was talking about he doesn't like Scotty playing the other positions, and I was being brash and maybe shouldn't have let that tiger out of the bag, but it's out there, so let's cement it and put it here for my viewers because they deserve Project Truth, full disclosure, right? You know what I mean? Keeping it pure. I will never lie to my viewers. I promise you. I swear to God. Well, okay, let's continue back to what the theory was. But okay, we heard in the previous part, right, how he thinks of when he brings in exceptional talent, they transfer something, what they are, into certain players that are able to take it in, like Fred VanVleet and Pascal and OG, right? And he missed a guy. Well, he said other, or everyone, but he meant Chris Boucher in there too, right? Because I haven't really gotten to these points, and that's where like my channel and Logical Phase 2 is building to eventually talk doing the Scotty recipe video. But there's a lot of stuff that has to go in between there and now. But ultimately, I think Masai's plan with Scotty is to build like a Frankenstein freak monster of a player that literally has 5 different guys in him and plays with those certain characteristics and stylings when switching positions. So he's taking 5 recipes and taking a guy that could probably absorb a lot of stuff and get stuff a lot in quicker time. So reducing the time needed and the minutes needed at certain positions where he can achieve the same results that it took the Boucher mold slash recipe, which is the one of the 5 that I've yet talked about, and 4 yet to talk about. But ultimately, Boucher carries, and I have to talk about the mentor part. I've been slacking on that video because it's such a complex video, and I wanted some more concrete proof and structure how to what I was going to talk about and how I was going to talk about it. And I think obviously Masai gives me a great segue because I understand learning like he does. It's learning like in real life. You know what I mean? If you have great people that teach you the real stuff that matters and they're not looking to kind of spoil you in a sense of they don't want you just as good as them or something like that, and they truly want you to exceed in life like true friends do, then you get characteristics from them, good and bad. So he tends to find mentors and guys that are completely great in a sense of skill wise and passion and all that kind of stuff because a lot of the teaching does transfer through. We see OG now starting to emerge with some of the Kawhi package that he was working on since 2019. Since seeing Kawhi up close and personal every day, he started to change his workouts. He tried to change his workouts to the way Kawhi was doing them and how he was doing ball handling, looking a lot at Kawhi tape and stuff. And now you can see shades of like him defensively and now offensively. OG had a great game in Miami where he just like he was showing the full bag and the full toolbox almost out in display. Like people were kind of whining over turnovers earlier, but it's about investing into those mistakes, right? And this takes time. And that's the time that Masai was talking about. It set us back a couple of years because we need to now invest a whole bunch of time into some new guys to get to the point where we're at right? It's not about results, whether we're in the playoffs or not. It's the strength and the positioning of the machine we have and the progress we make with each guy, right? Because it takes, like I said, it takes like 3 years to mold a player in a sense. It's like baby years and how you're molding a personality in a sense, and that's really key. So that's the time frame he's talking about. We have to reset and kind of bring another guy in because the issues that we're going to talk about with what happened with Flynn. But let's take a look at who was on the roster and who the mentors were, because I think that was also really important. And I think ultimately we know what happened this season and kind of what happened with the change in plan. I think Masai was very key and took responsibility for the center issue. And that I think really just hampered our team all year. We kind of fought through it a bit. We got rid of the dead weight in a sense, got Kem Birch and kind of Freddie Gillespie to kind of hedge the bleeding a bit, right? Well, I think Birch was a great find in a sense, and I think an underutilized person, like he says, it's sometimes it's an eye for talent, and clearly Masai saw Kem and thought he had some great talent that can be used because then he goes into the year after like the bubble and when Masai's talking with that Raptor background in the sun and stuff, and those series of clips were after the bubble, right? And he's talking about how like we got or sorry, Tampa Tank, sorry, after the Tampa Tank, not the bubble. So after this year, right? And after we had Birch for that small time frame, he calls him part of the core after he signed a certain deal because he sees we traded away our defensive center in Jakob Pertl, and we looked for a guy that could give us something similar to what Jakob Pertl gives us, right? Because we were always planning a certain dynamic with our guys, right? That kind of set us back, just that part. But getting Birch and then locking him in is kind of like a replacing Pertl thing in a sense. So, but back to Flynn, right? I think obviously like the season went how it went. There was a lot of missing guys and all types of stuff. And a lot of guys got different types of minutes. So his minutes aren't actually like the same as most rookies. And I think that's where we need to gauge what kind of season this was and what kind of minutes he got. And understand it's really interesting because I think this was also a complete solid connection, I think, between Delon and Malachi are the no G League in a sense. Well, the G League wasn't trusted yet till vanvleet the next year, right? And we said that. So it wasn't fleshed out. So a fleshed out G League and him able to go down there and really learn how to be physical with smaller bodies and learned how to learn through that part a lot quicker. Because I think we're going to go into some of his skill traits and attributes, but I think obviously defense is a big key thing with him. And I think that's what's ultimately stopping his ceiling and his minutes and all that kind of stuff. But let's get into it, I guess, more, right? And let's remember, right? This wasn't the strongest draft. So a 29th pick isn't the same as the Pascal pick or another pick. Like Banton, we're going to take a look at Banton soon. We're going to talk about that. So, but anyways, he was at the 29th pick, right? Guards on the team. So starters were Lowry and Fred VanVleet. That's the year, like, there's starting to be a transition, right? Fred was playing more on ball and Kyle Lowry's kind of filling in that role, right? I talked about this dynamic earlier in Fred VanVleet extension series, what his role in the future was going to be. So he's going to start doing the similar like this with Scotty, but it's going to take a couple years. Like Lowry has kind of trained Fred VanVleet up. So it takes a while to kind of actually pass the keys to from leader to leader in a sense. And it's about instilling all that the culture is and becoming it, knowing the fan base, knowing like almost like everything there is about the team before you become leader in a sense, right? Know its history, know its value, like all this type of like crazy stuff. But then there's also the part of the point guard position and always learning current stuff too. So there's also like a double feed system. There's feeding in history, they're feeding in current stuff, and they're looking to see, okay, can he learn from history and the current stuff to get better in the future, right? So we got to think about how long some of this stuff takes, right? Masai said patience before, so I think it's really key for that. But I think ultimately, let's introduce a theory here, I guess, and say like a player, when you get a base player, like say any player, just measuring potential, right? Let's talk about it in acres because I think that's a really interesting kind of theory dynamic where you can say this. Watch. Okay. So we have Pascal Siakam. He had a higher acreage and more land to build on than someone to say, let's say Malachi, because of his physical traits and the room he has to grow, right? We also got to understand what the player's deficiencies coming in are and whether we can improve them quicker and have a bigger upside on the player. So looking them at that moment isn't exactly what you're looking at. You're looking at frame, body, character, size, I think defensive hustle and like ability and ball IQ and sportsman IQ, understanding kind of how to defend and stuff is really key. That's something that hasn't been able they were that's not it that's something that Masai hasn't been able to translate. So keying on him looking for guys with that kind of already instilled, because I think that's not a teachable skill to him, maybe, or maybe we can upgrade some effort like ends of the skill and like teach them how form and different things, but ultimately I think there's a ceiling on those type of guys that aren't natural defenders, like a gift, like quick eye coordination and instant decision making. And I think we're going to go into Flynn and what his main issues are as a player on our team. But let's continue through the depth because these are the guys he has to beat off, right? Or not, sorry, beat like to get time. Sorry, sorry. Wow, sorry. Norman Powell and Terrence Davis the second, and I think this was obviously the summer after his mistake. So obviously, this is an interesting because this was his final year of kind of knowing he wasn't kind of in the plan long term and we're displaying him. So he's going to get for sure minutes. And Norm, obviously, great prospect. He, it's really interesting how I think how this all worked out because Norm was never looked at as a long-term prospect, and I think when they were drafting, they were going to look to mold Malachi first into kind of like a shooting guard with some playmaking skills to be beside Van Vliet in a sense and have that still a smaller backcourt, but maybe have like a tandem of Malachi off the bench more in the first couple of years and see where that went, right? And Masai also said that, hey, trades come up. We can always look at getting different guys and stuff. So I think ultimately it's about fitting around Van Vliet, Pascal Siakam, and OG. That was the plan, right? Build around them. We're looking at OG to take that number one kind of number one, number two role, like be a tandem with Siakam, and then have Fred VanVleet feeding everything and feeding the role players and kind of organizing the team, and then Pascal feeding everyone too, and OG feeding everyone and having spacing and that was the plan, right? That was the plan before what happened in Tampa, or what happened with Tampa happened, right? And I think we talked about the center as a part of that decision, but I think ultimately this is the part that stained things. Not having that G League, and like I said, the first 3 years are really important for a player and how you mold them, and molding them properly. You need that system in place the day they hit, right? So obviously, the day Malachi hit, we definitely didn't weren't all in systems going and ready to go. So they knew there was going to be already a tough pull, right? And I think Jalen Harris as well. But the roster was kind of empty too. So I think they kind of knew what kind of season it was going to kind of be, but they were hoping like the replacements with Bane being like Gasol a bit, and then Lynn being like Boucher, or sorry, Lynn being like Ibaka, and Boucher kind of being there playing center, because we were still testing him out as center, right? And we were still under the assumption he could play center because this was his first year that he really got true minutes to prove whether he could be a true NBA player, right? I think obviously it took like 3 years to mold him, and then we let him play. And once like the third year happens and you need to show what like you have, or else, like Masai said, sometimes you have to close the door and bring in other guys, right? So this is what happened with Pat McCaw. Wasn't able to grow in the 3 years. Unfortunately, bad injury luck. Obviously, the karma of that situation kind of backfired on Raptors fans because they kind of like slacking him, but he was a solid defender. Like he's almost like the opposite of Flynn. Well, no, opposite. It's hard to say complete opposites. You can't really talk about it in those terms, but defensively, yes, he was completely solid. And then where Flynn, we're gonna get into him. Sorry, I don't mean to. I just want to set the table properly, right? And then we have rookie Malachi Flynn, 29th pick, and Jalen Harris, 59th pick. And I think it's really key to understand that there was no G League team, and this was like they were on the roster. And I think we looked at Jalen Harris's minutes and we understood that he just basically got no run and blowout run and some like resting or tanking minutes, right? So let's get into what Malachi's minutes were like, and let's understand the tanking part of it, I guess, and understand how that evaluates into the type of minutes that they get. Because I think it's really interesting sometimes how a player, if they're not winning in the first couple years, it molds them into like it's almost like bad habits are okay. You're not like on them enough to really nip those bad habits in the back because you can't really play a guy that shows great habits and you're like, look, this is how you have to play. You can't play any lesser, or like, you know what I mean? There's a bar and you can see the bar because we have guys that keep the bar lifted at all times. And that's why kind of Nick does do long minutes kind of. He wants to make sure that the level of play is always the same kind of level, really high. Max, like, well, not max, but make sure everyone's position sound, because I think in team defense, it's really key that one defender isn't the weak link, because then in a team defensive scheme, that one weak link can just get picked on constantly, which we've seen Malachi Flynn being now picked on, because I think he hasn't been worked on his physicality, how get into the body and kind of steal it that way more. And he's kind of shied away from getting into where VanVleet is like, you don't want to call out Fred VanVleet because he'll get into your body and make you feel uncomfortable, and you're gonna have to pay a price for every bucket you try to get over VanVleet. That's where Flynn doesn't make it hard enough to play against. He needs to be a complete deterrent against guys wanting him because he can just grab the ball, take it, right? And we've seen flashes of it. I'm going to talk about all right, let me this is the Flynn take. After watching him for as long as I have, I've think realized, okay, let me set the table with what Masai said and what thinks about Flynn. Okay? Hold on.
Well, those two guys you mentioned, like about winning, and um, to me, this game is about winning. Simple. Yeah. There's nothing else. It's only winning. Yeah. We want to win in Toronto. Yeah, I say it all the time. It's winning. Nothing else. Nothing. We can come hold hands, do whatever we want, hug, wear masks, do anything we want. Okay? Winning. Yeah, winning. Empty stadium, full stadium, winning. That's it. That's the kind of players we try to bring. Yeah, we want to win a championship here. It's not playoffs. Yeah, playoffs is good, but win big, win a championship. That's what we want to do here. Yeah, and sports is about competing. Yeah, so in our mindset, that's the kind of players like we want to bring. When we interviewed Scotty, he mentioned winning 100 times. He kept on talking about winning. Every time you talk to Freddie, I just met with Freddie a couple of days ago, and it's winning, win. It comes out of their mouth all the time. You talk to all the players, win. The players you get like that are the players that are going to win. That's what they believe in. Whether their personalities are different, they have to have that mindset of winning. And that's what we want, because I think that's what sports is about.
Besides that point,
How come they are exceptions? What makes Fred in particular able to, stay and do all the things you guys want to do on a roster that's full of guys who don't look like them?
He's a winner. He's a champion. He's an all-star. He beats everything. That's bigger than 6'9". That's the truth. Bigger than 6'9". That guy's heart is bigger. You need those guys on your team every day. Do I think Malachi can become like that? Yes. He's got the skills. He's got the ability. Now he just has to, show it in some kind of way. And we hope to give that opportunity to show it.
Normally, when you subtract a player like Kyle from a team that's so central and entrenched in the team's DNA on and off the court, there's an adjustment period. And I'm sure there was here too, but from the outside looking in, it seems like the transition was pretty smooth this year. Is that what it felt like to you? And if so, what do you attribute that to?
I think I attribute it to, I think the kind of players that Kyle, DeMar, Kawhi, those guys, Serge, Marc Gasol, those guys were. They transferred, a lot of what they did to the other players. And that's the truth. Yeah, you see some of those tendencies with these guys that played with them. And then the fabric of the culture. Those guys built a culture for us. And we're proud of that. We're very proud that those guys were part of our program. And they elevated our program to a certain extent. These guys have to continue that. Those guys set a level that they have to continue. And that's where character, that's where tradition, that's where everything you build, inside you as a sportsman, you learn. And Freddie learned that. He saw that. He saw that every day. Pascal learned that. They saw that every day. OG, all these guys. And that's what hopefully we try to teach here. I think the coaching staff too. Those things that I think Nick Nurse has expect to win in everything he does and he says. We expect to win. And that builds that.
Sorry for reusing clips. That was the full context message that I was hoping to be fully just one part two, right? but because of the move, I decided to kind of split it into like Harry Potter, the last one, where it's like split into two movies, right? So we had to kind of retrack over a little bit, but I think it's key to understand that whole question was about or Flynn after this year. So really interesting enough how he looks at players. So I think we need to understand Flynn wants to win bad. Like he really wants to win bad. If he's saying he can become like Fred VanVleet, he means like mentality wise. He wants to win bad. And I think we've kind of messed up with the point guard position before and not understanding what to draft for. We were thinking we could just teach up like certain skills, right? And mold a guy completely from the cup kind of being half full or however full they need it to be for the point guard, but maybe less full on that aspect. So, and the lawn didn't work out. So obviously you learn from your mistakes before and you continue to progress and learn, okay, what made the 2 point guards that we did work and worked really great? What is the key same thing, the one thing that really makes them so similar in a sense, and it's extremely high basketball IQ. That's what it is. Well, effort and the pillars, but beyond the pillars, their elite skill is IQ. And it's interesting enough, Lowry's other elite skill is passing, right? And then Van Vliet's his elite skill is defense, right? So they are looking at two leaders in a sense that could teach kind of both sides of the ball and kind of push that kind of gift onto a new guy. And who do you get to kind of absorb that and have the base knowledge and IQ? So I think that's where people have maybe misunderstood because we haven't seen him enough, but I've watched him so closely. Like players, like when he's talking to players, it's about like plays and stuff. It looks like he's being serious, and the other guy's like nodding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. He's keeping people on point, like organizing people, like being like a foe. Well, not like a foe, but a poor man's Van Vliet in a sense, almost exactly for Tune, but has better pick and roll skills that Lowry was good at. So you're trying to converge skills into one guy. So you can have all those great skills at once. Like we were saying, other teams don't build rosters the right way and actually bring in a whole separate guy and think that that's going to fix things. No, this is how you fix things. You keep compiling elite skills into one body and you keep passing down those skills till it becomes a point where everyone's so fluid in a whole bunch of aspects from different people just continuously. It's like a DNA tree. It's like the fathering of different players, right? And now everyone has like mixed DNA and it's all like everyone's the same like race, like South Park when the future people come back and they take the jobs and stuff and everyone's DNA is almost exactly the same. It's because eventually that's going to happen if we continuously keep guys, mold them into our starters, and they'll have grandfather knowledge. But when you trade away guys, you're cutting that grandfather knowledge away, right? You're saying that player doesn't have enough of it to push to the next guy or wasn't able to show enough results from that information. Like Norman Powell, unfortunately, he got some growth in his game from Kawhi coming, but at the same time, it didn't fix him necessarily in the IQ department. Like we're saying, I know that was one of my earlier videos, so we didn't talk about the IQ part and kind of get into what effects IQ has on a player that has it and what effects they have with it, like in a game aspect, because that's what you have to look at. What skills translate? what actual skills translate and what do you build your players on? It's not about what they can do now, it's what they have the capability to do, like the acreage. And I think building a strong foundation, a winning foundation, a nice large winning foundation, and building the house up is a similar thing. And I think the foundation is super key. The first year, couple years, you're building up the walls to kind of shape who you're going to become as a player, right? Third year, you kind of have the house up and you kind of know the size a bit. And then you start adding like different like properties on the or adding to the house or adding to your elite skills, like what brought you to the NBA in a sense, but then adding new skills. So building an atrium or building expanded garage or something like that. Like by Pascal Siakam's house right now is ridiculous. He's putting in bowling alleys and stuff. If you can understand the analogy, acknowledge he's like in a mansion right now, right? Because he built such a great foundation and because he had such great land space, right? You can't build a giant house on a tiny plot of land. So I think that's where the analogy of acreage comes really into key. You can understand. And then some properties are still rural. They like they have great acreage, but because maybe mentality or IQ or something stops them from developing into a better winning player, or the foundation wasn't big enough and set enough, like well, right? You can only build on stable land in a sense, and it's about converting stable land and building a foundation, right? And I think Flynn's foundation is poor, just like Delon Wright's. Like they had acreage, like so. I think ultimately back to the point at hand, the through line with IQ and stuff. So they looked for a guy that had previous skills with the passing and the pick and roll and stuff, showed some defensive ability and stuff, and has the IQ. They feel he has the IQ and the mentality to be a point guard. So those are the things that he is, right? But then translate that to the player he is, right? And I think this is where the issue is in a sense of processing speed. Let's understand it in a sense of like, okay, Fred VanVleet's working with like a super NASA supercomputer. Lowry's working with like also a NASA supercomputer, and they're looking for another supercomputer, but this one Malachi's not as good and stuff, so he's got like a like a B-rate website supercomputer, right? And I think that's where ultimately that's why he's capped out in a sense. Well, he can still upgrade that processing speed, but he doesn't make decisions fast enough. He hesitates on like everything. And when he gets called out defensively, he's mainly reacting and reacting too slow, right? He's not imposing his will. He's not forward thinking enough where he can read the defender and know like everything, or read the offensive player and know everything about him. Like Fred VanVleet said in a great interview. If you haven't checked it out, wow, unbelievable podcast interview on the Ball Don't Stop. Uh, True Toronto man's, and even though doesn't know anything about Project Truth, is still a Project Truth person. Like I just coined the phrase. I don't own the movement. I'm just trying to like add power to a feeling. Like when you give something a term or a name, you give power to it more because you people can focus on the idea and understand. It can be used more versatily to explain certain things, right? So, but back to Flynn. Sorry about the tangents today. Um, I'm recording at this different time, so I'm usually like more really not as loose as later in the evening and stuff. All right, but ultimately, I think Flynn's IQ just isn't high enough to make the decisions fast enough. Because I think speed of getting the right decision, of the having the right choice and seeing the extra choice, the extra right choice, right, really matters in dynamics of playmaking and understanding things. We talk about vision, expanding vision, right? But vision is also in part your ability to read the floor, to read guys completely. And I think, okay, Fred VanVleet, like in, I was going to get to the point that in the actual clip, I would have brought the actual clip. I don't want to like s- take someone's like recent work and stuff, and there's still, that wouldn't be like it wouldn't be fair use in my feelings, and I just don't want to do that. I think I think Raptors clips from the channel are safe, or media things are really safe, but I'm gonna stick to the clips I have because I know others have had issues with clips and different stuff, and I'm looking for things to age good. And I think it not like, I don't even know if I'd ever monetize the channel, to be honest, but to just for searchability, once they get like demonetized, they stop getting recommended more and stuff like that. So the algorithm is more against what I'm doing, and that's why I was trying to be aggressive in phase one, because I knew I was making content that's harder to get started because of the algorithm, and that's why people tend to dictate their content to more clickbait and hypey kind of titles and subjects, and make them shorter because they get more clicks and pictures and all that kind of stuff. But I like a longer format, a more of it explaining of a topic in full context to try to give person the right aspects of what we're talking about here. And I think this was, they also, Project Truth, right? That was the point before I wanted to backpedal to Malachi, then backpedal to the point of the Ball Don't Stop podcast. But Fred Vance Vliet said he can tell in 2 steps of any guy walking on the court how he's going to shoot, how he's going to move, how he's going to do like everything pretty much. He can pick up like such intricate details, and it's auto programmed in his brain in a sense. Like I, I I have like a little bit of a thing with like, because I freestyle, all this is I just set up the kind of slides and then I go off memory of understanding what happened and what I've previously thought through, and that's how I percolate different videos. I'm just thinking of different idea tracks and kind of combining it and melding it on the fly to save time, because it takes a lot of work to make YouTube content, and that's why I don't want to slander anyone, just because I know it takes a lot of hard work, and they wouldn't mean to put things out that aren't right, or the other motive, obviously money, which I don't want to be a part of either, right? So back to it. But so I think you could tell what kind of IQ Fred has. He has like literally unbelievable IQ, and I think it's baked into his decisions. He's been using his IQ for so long to get ahead of the competition. So he's had to sharpen that knife to the point where it's like surgical. It's surgical like sharp, right? Where I think Flynn has had a bit of athletic ability in a sense of closer to Lowry's athletic ability and getting to the rim and stuff. It is a key aspect of athletic ability, right? And ultimately, I think taking a little bit more athletic versus the kind of pressure test that Van Vliet's been under his whole life because of his athleticism has sharpened his brain to a point where it's beyond what Flynn could reach in a certain time. And I think ultimately, Flynn, it's about time. How long are we willing to wait till he puts it all together and becomes playable? Because I think ultimately, defensively, you have to play like Van Vliet if you're smaller, or Lowry. And I don't think he's either part of them, right? We were talking about how you get into the body and kind of make it uncomfortable No matter what, they don't want to come make it so uncomfortable that like they have to work so hard for those points, get physical, make them pay, right? And I don't think he really learned that in this Tampa year. And that's part of trimming good habits and well, not trimming the trimming bad habits and getting good ones up to speed, right? And I think ultimately he needed the G League to kind of learn how to get into the body with Fred VanVleet and Lowry's advice because there's a lot of in between with the G League and the Raptors program, and I think that's a really key connection that all these G League guys do get some exposure to the higher club, right? And a lot of ideas from the higher club and get contact with some of the players and stuff. And that's why it's key for them to have like vet nights and stuff where all the whole team goes down there. That's the whole part of this culture, right? Having connections throughout the whole culture. Like this is the culture is shaped by your lead guys. And I think ultimately your lead guys need to be really important, but then the prospects under them need to be molded properly. I think you're going to see in a second with Delon Banton, we had things back up and running again when we were in the T dot, right? So I think just ultimately the start, it's like a head start in a race. Like if you get out of the gates fast enough, your long-term success of winning the race will be greater, right? So it's not about what you did before the race. It's right when the race starts. So right the day we get you, right? And that's the starting blocks. I'm talking about the first 3 years of molding a player, right? And I think Malachi was fell asleep at the wheel and literally didn't even start on time, I think, based on the reasons we've said before. But hoping that his IQ could battle through that, right? And still develop faster because I think IQ shows we talk about IQ and understanding to help. That's how what helps increase the rate of development. I'm gonna actually I probably won't touch on Coloco today, but my next video will be a Konono video. Yeah. All right. But back to Flynn. I'm sorry. But so let's keep that all in mind when we're looking at these stats and his long-term goal and success. And I think IQ is really big with him and shooting. And, he had a bit of skills already. They were looking to carve out a shooting guard type of Fred VanVleet role for him at first, and then maybe push him into the point guard role with OG as the forward, right? And then we were looking for another forward to kind of bring in, right? But I think obviously after that month where we had that terrible month where we went one in like 13 or 11. I don't know. I don't want to look too deep into that year right now, but I just want to continue on. The plan completely changed then. So we started the Tampa take, right? And we started resting guys that we knew were key to wins and stuff based on different matchups and stuff. I saw what they were doing. It was kind of funny, but Lowry kept hinting, "I'm not hurt, guys. Don't worry. Like I'm not that hurt guy." And he just got out of condition a bit by playing that way. And I think it's really important to keep these guys' motors up and always going at a high rate, right? It's like being conditioned to run a race. You don't like just train like for half the race. You might do the full race a couple times, train for 3/4 of it sometimes. Like there are different degrees, and you want to at least have the capacity to finish the race. And I think ultimately minutes and winning time and pressing for wins. That's real game shape. Not gym ball where no one's basically defending because they don't want to get hurt in the gym. You have to be game shape like NBA game shape where everyone's cutthroat and this is for the money and everyone's at peak condition and they're playing their butts off on all aspects. Some are incomplete players, some don't understand things. Obviously, there are dynamics to what a player is and how good he is, but ultimately, ultimately, This is a big key thing, winning basketball, playing winning basketball and building those good habits and training them in. And once they're stuck in an early player, like I think an older player can kind of speed back up to that point, but early players, once they learn that, it's kind of like broken for them, right? And I think ultimately we felt like after the trade point, I think this is where we started looking at different guards. We kind of knew last year's shooting guard slash new point guard that was supposed to go beside Fred VanVleet. He had a pillar missing character issue. We went into it, right? Great insight into TD's time here if you haven't seen that one. And he's actually the piece that converted into Banton. So we can get that one out of the way for now so I don't have to go over it. But ultimately, so when they were drafting, they're looking to replace Terrence Davis now with a new kind of shooting guard that can eventually become point guard because he's shown different skills and stuff. And that was an interesting mold. They're looking for like a jaw point guard mold, like one with like extreme athleticism and seeing maybe if they could push because he has sporting IQ, but it's whether you can transfer all the football stuff completely into basketball and kind of build that out, right? And that was obviously going to take a little bit, and but they knew they could understand and do it, right? But I think he made a mistake, so that changed the game plan for him. I think early season he was just being shown and marketed, and that's where Flynn's minutes came from. The next guy into the system, right? And it because we were trying to lose, he got tons of minutes, right? So let's look at what those minutes were like, right? Age 22, so similar to Van Vliet when we got him, like 22. So we know it's going to take about 4 years, 3, 4 years to treat the key transfer. And that's why we're aiming to maybe transfer the keys at 27, 26, 27, like Masai said in the clip, right? So Toronto, yeah, NBA team. So this is the actual league, right? The NBA league, right? So point guard, yeah, 47 games played, 14 started. So starting games as rookie, this amount says one sign, losing minutes. Other than if they're extremely talented, like a rookie of the year, which Scotty, yeah, we talked about Scotty. I don't want to go too deep into that rabbit hole, but you can see we were talking about OG starting in his year, a lot of games in his year, and the type of team that was and the way it was built and kind of how incorrect that was in a sense. OG's defense was solid and needed, but I think ultimately his offense wasn't able to grow properly, and we can see the the, the effects from it now, where we're kind of have to overcook on the offense a bit to get him where he should have been if he was playing a proper position in the bench mob role, where he was switching time out with Siakam, and they were both getting that kind of starter minutes because I think they were both extremely great talents, and I think ultimately we were weak at that power forward position, so they both could have added different things, but Dwayne Casey was so stuck in his ways and didn't want Pascal bringing the ball up. I bet OG was never allowed to touch the ball dribbling. It was just like, you don't ever dribble, OG. And like, so there was a lot of handcuffing, and I think Nick Nurse doesn't handcuff, but he demands a lot, right? He demands a certain bar on defense, and then he'll live with the offense. He says offense is a bonus, but we need the defense, right? So 19 minutes played, so pretty high. Like, so about like a second, third year guy where we're actually like testing his true pop, right? In the third year after he's been molded. And this is where that third year is really important in being part of winning in that year. I think it really escalates the next development plan phase, right? So field goal attempts, he was getting a decent amount of shots like rookies we've seen. We've looked at a lot of rookie stats. They don't get that kind of role on the big club the first year and stuff. But we also have to understand this is skewed by the couple games that he started, right? So let's just try to think of it as more averaged out over the second half versus the first, right? And think about what kind of record we had then and what kind of minutes he was playing. Because I think winning is important, right? We talked about the importance all the time of winning. Winning is the point, the only point, right? And that's how you build a true sportsman, right? And Masai said it best, and that's why I think ultimately it was really great to start off with that clip. But ultimately, let's get back to it. So three ball, see, kind of a shooter. We gave him some volume. Uh, it's his first year on an NBA line. You could expect that, but the volume was up, I guess. You know what I mean? So they're trying to push to see if he can become like a shooting guard. Like he's getting a chance. He has an opportunity, and he's gonna still continue to get an opportunity this year. And that's where Masai was saying, I hope we can give him the opportunity. And he's going to get into it more. I'm going to show some more Malachi clips, but let's get into it because it's getting pretty long already. Wow, this one's going to be a long one. Sorry, guys. This is a great finale and really current subject. I just want to give it the context it deserves and really hammer home the points that we've kind of been building up. So, okay, 2 pointers. See better than vanvleet, so we could see he's better getting the rack, right? Free throw percent, decent for a rookie. Rebound, see like higher up than even vanvleet, but he was getting a lot of minutes, so we got to understand minutes, the minute sampling. So these are kind of weird stats to look at. It's hard to judge players like off the wanky stats. That's why I tend not to like look at the stats until there's a full set, like a full year or a full whatever it's going to be until it's concrete to look at it because I think they fluctuate drastically, and I think there's a lot of context that needs to be added into the stats period, right? So assists 2.9, pretty decent. So he has playmaking chops like in the pick and roll and stuff. We knew that, right? And he's showing a little bit of that defending, but I think on in a losing matter, he gets beat up, but he can make a good play every so often. Like he can, if he sees the right decision, he makes it. It's just he doesn't know all the options and doesn't see everything like Van Vliet does, and that's where his processing is slower, right? And blocks a point one in a sense. That's because he has a better speed than Van Vliet taking the guard down the lane, but not that much more. And it has to be, he has to start running almost before the guard to really stay in front of him, right? And get that block. So turnovers, so kind of high, but like decent, like a third, right? And ultimately, it's really interesting how like they kind of even out. So they believe in his playmaking, like Masai said, like he is hitting certain things here, and it looks like they can build on certain things that they were expecting from him, right? And that's all like the first year is about kind of proving that most of the things they want will transfer in a sense, even in a small part. And I think this was rookie of the or rookie of the month was from the minutes and kind of really showing some progress, but not in the areas of winning, but just individual skill wise, right? I think a lot of these awards are based on individual skills and not team winning uh, impact, and it's more about looking at the stats and saying, "Whoa, okay, this guy must be great because he's putting up a lot of stats," but not understanding what those stats mean and the holes in the game of the player. I think holes really matter in the playoffs. If you have any holes on either side of the ball, it really shows completely in the playoffs because teams use it to expose you. So let's continue on and let's hear about our next guy to come in and compete with our man Flynn here. We kind of went over his G League stats, so I think I'm not going to add that to that, but I think it's funny because he also touched the G League in a hyper G League system, which I think Coloco will. So like about 7 games. It's not going to be a full dip, right? Like we don't need that time, and the roster strength now on reliable vet pros isn't deep enough, and that's part of the setback, the 2 3 year setback, right? Where if roster isn't filled out, or they would have had more like 15 games, but we need them on the big club to play real minutes. So it's a hard give and take tug with that, and I think we need to be mindful of the skills they do need to develop with the smaller bodies that will really pay dividends when they grow into their bigger body and still learn the position tactics and a lot of different things that they're actually able to manage, and not learning like this over supersized tactics and learning more tactics appropriate for the size they're going to fill out to with the guys that are going to fill out in a similar manner in the same way. It's a timeline thing and body thing, right? Because players do tend to come into the NBA before they have that mature man body. So playing with men in mature man bodies in a physical game is completely different than playing with some of your familiar pros, and that's why you see maybe players that play in pro leagues, their stats are more looked at in a sense because they're playing with certain physicality and stuff, and college stats are looked at it different because the, the physicality is kind of different, so the skills are soft or high, whether they're able to transfer, right? And so far, Flynn's defensive accolades hasn't been able to transfer because I don't think he got to build that solid defensive foundation. But we're trying to repair it. We have had rehab projects, and we think we can still fix them, right? And I think that's where Masai is trying to hold out hope. But let's see what he has to say.
You know, that this development means a lot to our organization, and you know we want to continue to grow like that. So yes, there's plenty of excitement about not only Scotty Barnes but all the young players and we have. How about Delano? You know, like from right here in Toronto. You know, a young player. We believe that we got him in a draft probably the year before. You know, like he should be actually, he would actually maybe be a high prospect next year. You know, like, and we're excited about that. So, yeah, it might not be the big three and and you know winning now, like you said, sir, like the super teams, but in our minds it's a little super young, but super hopeful.
So obviously, that speech was right after we drafted Delon and Scotty, right? And he's talking about the excitement of both. And it's interesting how he said that he was a year away from being a higher prospect. And I think we should keep that in mind because that's his elite skill and ball handling skill at that speed, and his height and length are what he's mainly meaning about. If those tools were developed more, his ability to convert on the basket and that was more developed out, he would have been a higher prospect. But we started adding the 3 ball in the mid range. He would have maybe started that, but I think we pushed. See, that's our ability. We can develop multiple tools at the same time. Usually, it takes teams focusing on one skill at a time to kind of like master things in a sense. And we have like a great system where we know what it takes to build certain skills for certain positions because we've had those guys to help us build our system out, and that is part of the culture and adding to the culture of what we have, the development culture, adding to the recipes and stuff. That's the development culture we have, right? So I think it's really interesting. Obviously, we have to take a look at the guards because it completely just switched around. I think them seeing Malachi and knowing the season was going to get even worse, they brought in backup plan shooting guard Gary Trent Jr. for the immediate cause. and we're gonna hold him maybe for a couple of years of that timeline. Now with Scotty in the mix too, ready to take the mantle as the PG after that point, but Fred still kind of commanding both Gary Trent Jr. and Scotty Barnes for the now, and while Scotty gets more reps in at other positions, because I think it's key. Everyone wants to say, "Oh, Scotty's a point guard now," but you don't understand when he's playing other roles. You need guys, point guard type guys, to defend the point guard. That's that's the whole thing about versatility. You need guys that are versatile enough to do the other job while the other guy's doing the other job, and they switch around and the whole team switching roles and stuff, and that's what makes it unpredictable and almost impossible to guess who's the guy that you're actually going to go up against, because the versatility, role versatility, is completely out of the whack. So you have to, like, if you're one position, you're going to have to study like 3 different guys to just, and some of it might not even be useful. You don't know what Nick's gonna put on you or do any, he might do anything, and that's the whole point, unpredictableness in the playoffs and that read and react system, and we want these guys to grow in that system to eventually be able to do that in game 6s and game 7s. A great point on the CJ Miles podcast, they kind of like touched on some of the themes of this video, weird enough, because I think the heavy myths were floating around, and this time period was going to happen in my mind where they are going to display Flynn and see what he had, and this was test time, right? And I think ultimately, ultimately, well, not this time, but this current time, so third year Malachi, right? And he's kind of not coming up big enough. He's showing definitely improvement in his shot and stuff. So I think I'm going to talk about role dynamics for him afterwards, but let's get into what the roster looked like at that point. So Delon, okay, I wanted to touch on this. So obviously Delon Banton's draft was way better with Scotty than the top picks, and we know shelving. We've been through that shelf concept where you're moving talent like down shelves in order for what you need to play as an NBA team and stuff. So yeah, we went through the cabinet there. I don't want to see, like, I like trying to lay groundwork so I don't have to go over like every million point of the context, right? So it's key to like also go back and check, because I'm trying to make them as truthful and aging as possible, but they have a lot of pre, like, groundwork and stuff on different theories. Like the cupboard theory is in the two-way project or two-way salary contract series, where it's a two-parter, pre-Boucher, post-Boucher. It's in the pre-Boucher thing, and it translates to the post-Boucher too, but also translate here. So that's really key to maybe know a lot of what I'm talking about already, because it kind of formulates. I'm trying to do it in like a logical step of expanding the curriculum, right? In a sense of expanding the topics and the complexities of topics once we've built those solid foundations, just like the house and the theory of what we're building here. And obviously, Delon has a solid foundation. We're going to see in a second. But so Justin Champagny was our undrafted guy. We talked about in 2A series. I'm not going to touch on him here. David Johnson talked about in 2A series. Not going to touch on it here. We're going to focus on these two guys, right? It's their time. Delano versus Malachi. Let's see how it looks. All right. So Delon Banton on the top. I tried to like mirror the pictures and stuff, right? So Delon's at the top here, right? 22, so a year younger than Malachi. So we're looking at the same key transfer line age limit, right? Played 64 games, started one, where Malachi played 44 games and started 5. And I think that was more out of experience initially and stuff like that. And injuries and stuff, we had a tough. There was like a whole bunch of role swapping and craziness. There was a COVID hit like in December and stuff, and that's when Chris had his like epiphany that we talked about in the Chris deep dive video and stuff. But so he did get 5 games of starting, but it's interesting. These minutes are skewed to on those games, and ultimately he got more winning minutes. I think winning minutes are key. Not like, see, that's the difference. Losing minutes, winning minutes. And this translates to the next year, this current year, where Delon performed in the Miami game, where I felt that was the test for the two guys. Because I think they both performed well in the Pistons game, but that was against lower grade lower grade competition that's like years younger and should get dominated by us, right? And by these guys, right? In a sense of what we offer here and what the Pistons are teaching, right? The curriculum is way different over in Raptors Nation. Yeah, Raptors Freak Nation. Salute always. Love you guys. Um, so minutes, yeah, it's gonna look weird for a second here, but stick with me, right? So 3.2 and 4.2. And you got to understand, Delon played a couple games and he got his starting role position minutes in the G League. That's where he got his starting game minutes and got his real reps, where Malachi Flynn got those losing starting minutes reps and oversized. So he wasn't really learning against like body like comparisons with equal to his body age and stuff, right? So field goal, we can tell Delano has more length and stuff, so he can get to the rack better. We know that, but Flynn's still got some skill, so it's fairly high, right? But it's actually a bit lower, I think, than last year, right? So, interesting, right? And we're gonna check out volume and stuff, right? Volume's key. So Ben, yeah, not a lot of volume, so that sample size is nothing in a sense. But Flynn's in his second year, so let's see. It's uh, uh, it's barely come up. Usually, you want to see in the second year that comes up to at least 3.5 or closer for a shooting guard that we're trying to mainline as a shooter, right? That's very problematic in my opinion, right? If his mainline skill isn't performing. And we're gonna get to an interesting clip. Hold on.
Team for the future. Were you, based on the year, is it a bit ahead of schedule compared to your expectations, maybe?
Not really. It's it's sometimes we see it a different way from because we're on the inside, and you hope that these guys continue to like make progress. Sometimes when it starts, it doesn't look as pretty and as good, and there's still a lot of work to do. I think it's still a team of the future. I think we have to have patience and grow. It's the first time Pascal and Fred and Ogia have been at the helm, and I think they did okay. And the young guys, the first time they are really playing. I'm happy that they got that playoff experience, and due to injuries and players being out, COVID and all, everybody kind of got like an opportunity, to play in good moments this season, good or bad. And that, I think, leads to, the experience. And does that lead to it being faster? I don't know. We still have the patience here to build this team and whatever it takes to get these guys to grow. We'll see. And that doesn't mean, like things don't come up. This is just the NBA, but we've always preached growth here and development and young players, and I think we've done that. It's a high standard. It's. I think a couple of the players commended it. James Harden said something about the defenses like come at you and how the players come at you. This is something I think Nick preaches, teaches, is part of his style, his system, and yeah, I can't just go out there and put Grange out there to no, we don't want that.
Bad in the locker room.
Yeah, I think.
So that was kind of like a double clip. I just wanted to put in the first clip. No context really needed from that clip. We've connected a lot of issues to it. I don't want to point out all the connections. This little video gets so long. It's just I'm gonna go into the second clip more and talk about what he said about Grange. We can't have Grange out there. We don't want that. And he kind of like chuckled, right? And he's talking to the people like Eric Flynn. Well, that's actually towards Eric Flynn. And he's laughing at you, Eric Flynn, because you don't understand what's going on. Obviously, Masai, in the first clip, he says there's an inside part like that everyone else doesn't see that they see, and they need to understand that they're doing the right things based on what they see inside, like being as an inside piece. They can't say everything, and that's where I think sometimes being so closely attached to the team stops you from talking about certain theories or criticizing certain players in the proper ways, because I think you get frowned on and you lose access to different things, right? If you start blabbing your mouth off about different things, right, that are confirmed and people can tell, hey, this guy probably knows what he's talking about because he actually knows. It's like this weird, like if I was connected anyway, you'd assume all my information was perfect, right? Why wouldn't I know everything that's going on in the organization, right? So I think it's easier to keep my guesses and keep my accurate theory on lay without any influence or anything like that. But let's continue anyways. Sorry about the tangents, man. I just want to get a lot laid down in this episode so I can start fresh logical phase 2, and a lot of groundwork for future the logical phase to actually like where we're going through recipes and a lot of different things. These are topics that I don't want to have to kind of repeat. I just want to in the future kind of mention like a video, I guess, and you can kind of connect the dots in a sense just to keep length down, because these subjects are getting very complicated. I do want to add all the context, but some of the context is laid like pre-built into it. So I won't kind of outline anything beyond what I've already explained before, and kind of in that way, and I'll just say check the video out. Sorry for the length, but I'm just going to continue on here. But Flynn, he's talking to Eric Flynn, the dad, and saying, "We can't play your son because he gives us as much as Grange does on the court. The skill, like we were talking about, the skill that's going to anchor him in the NBA is not performing as desired, right? We're not seeing the return yet on the plan, and some of it's not his fault, some of it is the coaching's fault, and some of it's a lot of different faults, but mainly the faults rest on Malachi because it's up to him to really just push through all the adversity like Fred VanVleet has, because I think that's what proves who's a champion winner, that can survive through adversity and still continue having that great confidence in their work, hard work, because they've seen in the first couple 3 years that their hard work has translated to winning basketball, and translates to winning, and translates to like everything. It's like connecting hard work to success in the league, and how you're going to go about getting your success on this team, right? Because every player has individual goals every season. I think Nick is really great on this part, melding those individual goals into a team goal, and he plans around them, and that's why a lot of the play strategies and a lot of different things are used, because they adapting and they're trying to test different players in different roles and different combinations of different things, but ultimately it's based on the guys you have. Like you have to run the system you have. You can't copycat a system with a whole bunch of different other guys. Like we said, there's no two same players ever. They can play similar styles, but ultimately they'll have differences. So you're going to need different guys beside each other in different molds and different things like that to really have a cohesive team. And I think Bobby Webster, what Masai was saying before, he's kind of the numbers guy, analytics crunching kind of guy for fit, and that's what I'm talking about regarding fit. So Masai picks out the main talents in a sense of our 1 and 2 guy, and then Bobby's trying to find 3 and 4 and 5, and they're both talking in tandem on future guys, and you know how it works. But I think ultimately Masai laid it out. He picks his words very carefully, so it's really key to like even go back sometimes and replay clips to kind of get another lens on what he said, because with more understanding you learn more about what he's saying, and we can tell that he's saying to Eric Flynn, you need to chill out because your son's producing like or Michael Grange right now, and we don't want that. So you need to chill out and be patient. He was signaling patience through this press conference a lot because the way the season ended after when we didn't. Well, we had a good playoff showing, like I said, the Brooklyn series, but it ended bad, and then the whole point guard thing got really convoluted, and a lot of pressure to find the next point guard was coming into play. And I think you can see where we've got set back a couple years. We don't have that point guard yet. And I think ultimately Jeff Doughton was coming in as kind of an immediate guy. He seems to have certain skills, but long term, I think Delon Wright obviously has the more potential. So we're going to look for him to be the long-term kind of PG and sub in PG when Scotty's playing other roles and stuff. And that's the role that they're auditioning for. And I think there's only enough money in the like the salary cap sheet, which we went over in the finale of my extension series. Like I said, there's a lot of building blocks, and I base a lot of my team choices and future decisions based on the money, because the money tells a lot, and I can read that money and tell and predict certain things which age well based on my understanding of how money dynamics work in the NBA. And I think that's my true elite skill in the sense. And then I kind of package out everything, my ability to read the game and stuff, into a lot of different things that I'm explaining here, but mainly it's the money game. I can read money and logic puzzles like crazy, and NBA roster is a logic puzzle. The CBA is the key in a sense to what pieces fit where and what you can do in a sense, and it's a puzzle, right? So I completed the puzzle of our guys in a sense of what that moment was, but every season I'm going to do an extension series, and I'm going to add on to all these other stories when the story gets more filled out. So I'm always monitoring several different trends at the same time, and then trying to figure out what I need to say earlier to pin up other videos. So like I said, uh, I bet people would love that Scotty recipe video, but it's not the right time. A lot of the concepts aren't really understood yet that I haven't explained yet. And I've already kind of thought through, like I'm already like a million steps ahead in a sense of where I'm at from like explaining it now. I can get confirmations on different things. And the Flynn confirmation was from him playing so many minutes this week and diagnosing who he is as a player and understanding what happened with him. I think it's hard to tell sometimes, but with more time, like and more playing minutes, you can see tendencies start to develop in play and see where he's kind of deficient and know and see the same pattern and the growth pattern and understand where his skills are and chart them based on that, right? So let's go back into it. Let's keep charting his skills. So we talked about the 2-pointer, right? Banton's taller, has a more acreage, right? So estimated field goal. See, Flynn has higher because it's based on 3-point. Estimated is like 3 points are weighed appropriately. If anybody wanted to know what that really was, it's like all the shots are weighted appropriately and based on a even playing scale. Like your 3-point percent turns into like um like out of 50 or something, and then like I don't know the breakdowns exactly. It doesn't really matter. It's just some kind of just a stat to be there to summarize context. So you cut out context, make the estimation shorter, and but it can tell you what's estimated. And I think shot number might go into that set. I don't know. It's whatever. It's not a big deal at this moment. I just want to continue on. I'll check into that and we'll find out. Don't worry. We're gonna go there too. We're gonna get all that context. All right. So um free throw and then free throw attempts. You could see not really a sample size. So Flynn doesn't play physical whatsoever, but it's also in part getting to the rack. So Delon gets the rack better, but gets more calls and stuff like too because his speed makes people have to like foul him to kind of like get in front, and they're out of position a lot when he's pushing the ball up. And I think that's where the elite part is, getting players out of position and creating mismatches. And he's great at kind of like freezing the defense early by bringing the ball up really fast and kind of letting the guys fill in where they think the best matchups are. And even if he doesn't get a shot at the net, he can kind of like back it out, reset it with the good matchups, and then get a point from there. So he kind of makes an advantage from his ball handling elite skill if he kind of like freeze that defense off transition, make them lock into their positions more earlier, creating mismatches, right? And he's already a mismatch at guard, right? So I think it's like his pure advantage and acreage and skill based on his size and his ball handling are way bigger than Flynn. So obviously you're going to see more invested development, but also I think hitting the ground running out of the starting gates, like I said with the G League, and getting that same body size. I think that's really important. I think people are missing that key and think that just, oh, play him a bunch of NBA minutes and it doesn't matter. There's certain things that players have to develop with the similar body types because when they get bigger, they want to be able to develop it in an appropriate size and know different movements and how much force and pressure to use with different moves and stuff. And you can see OG doesn't know pressure moves and stuff, and that's why he keeps ramming people down in a sense. He doesn't understand that he's always been playing and had to overpower everyone because he wasn't in his man body at first and he played a lot of starting minutes. But okay, let's continue anyways though. So similar rebounds, but Banton's better. Clearly length and ability to rebound. We saw that in the G League. He averaged about 8 rebounds in the G League. So clearly he's a great rebounder in a sense. And even Flynn like getting like those blowout minutes and kind of skewing the average and stuff, Delon's still better, right? And I think assists, look, see, that's where the thing is, right? See, as a rookie, we can allow more turnovers on the same assist number, but we want to see the assists increase, right? That's the problem. He's too indecisive and he doesn't make the decision early enough, and then the guy's covered up by the time he passes the ball. And you could see a lot of indecision sitting at the top of the key. Like, but Fred VanVleet, okay, there's two differences in indecision. Fred VanVleet's waiting based on either if the team played really hard on the defensive possession earlier, and I saw this in the Miami game where they went on that crazy like X out play or like one of the really long defensive position possessions where they ate the whole clock. They got a couple rebounds, ate that up too, and then kind of that's when they started to play the O, and I saw Fred take control of the ball, kind of sit at the top of the key for like about like 10 seconds or so, and then go down the lane and kind of use his IQ to milk a foul where he knew he could get it. Well, that person's not going to make the same mistake, but he saw that and he pre-plans different things he scouts. He's not going to point them out or use them when they don't matter. He's going to use them when the team really matters. And I think that's part of IQ play, like learning when to like tell the refs about certain things and start getting things a little bit different, like the surprise element, the attack element of things. And IQ is great because there's always like kind of like this element of being first to the punch in a sense and have the other team reacting. And Fred VanVleet's a great person to set the flow in a right way and get the other team reacting. He has that type of IQ. And Siakam's starting to really develop that IQ now too, because he's been with us for so long. And him VanVleet's rubbed off on him, and Siakam's rubbed off on VanVleet. That's how it all works. Everyone rubs off on everyone, and you kind of build that family culture based on that. And it's similar in a family dynamic, and that's why I think they're the statements they're so deep. Like I love, and I always focus on things being so deep on so many levels, so you can re-listen to it and kind of add more context with more experience, right? So you could probably listen to some of my stuff back that you listened to before and add more context. Know that obviously certain things are correct or certain are wrong, but with the more context, you can understand more where I'm coming from with the bigger picture. So it's really interesting. I'm just gonna continue in here. So ribs, assists, we were talking about that. So now let's go defense. Steals, 05 for Flynn, 04 for Banton. And then blocks, Banton's got an 0-2, and then Flynn's got an 0-1. So that's really interesting. A rookie kind of outblocked him, obviously the size and stuff, but it's really interesting. Even defensively, you still should have any effect, and clearly that's why he's on the court, right? I think he got this amount of minutes because Flynn's inability, Michael Grange, freaking defense that year was horrible. And Masai is like, it's sad that he had to say it, but like he doesn't want to beat down the player, so he makes it super vague, and you have to understand the context of what he's saying because he chooses his words carefully, and you got to understand exactly what he answers to and what he doesn't answer to. So obviously Delon Banton with his turnovers because he has more vision in a sense, but a little bit wilder, right? So we're kind of limiting his passes first here, but then we jack them up in the G League, and he got to work through a lot of those first issues where he wasn't playing losing basketball for the big club and was playing more with the skill level that would be winning basketball for him and still continuing to build on those pillars of full effort and hard work and winning, right? You know what I mean? So, all right, and then fouling, obviously, he's got had a lot of tough assignments, but still for a rookie, not even like same foul rate. That's pretty good, not gonna lie. And Flynn wasn't doing much of any like Grange, and 4.3 for a second year player versus a 3.2. Yes, he's better offensively at this current moment, but defensively, it's not even close. It's not even close in my mind. The versatility that Banton provides, the rim protection in a sense. Like I said, Flynn needs to make the decision early to be on the guard to get that block, where Banton can be late on the decision and his skills kind of make that gap up where he needs an IQ to kind of be in front of the guy, right? Certain players have certain elite skills that can override needing IQ, and that's what coasting on athleticism is. And we've seen what happens with Westbrook. When you get older, the wave kind of hits the house, the wave of time, right? It's slowly creeping, and then boom, it hits. And things that are not built in the foundation is usually secure, right? Who they are as a player usually kind of lays out for the rest of their lives, right? But only certain parts and certain structures are safe. And I think ironcladding a skill like three-pointers is almost like building like a bomb-proof shelter. Working on your shooting is a basic skill, but like expanding out your basement and is a foundation skill, but adding like a bomb-proof basement with a pantry, you're supplying the rest of your career so you get that money. So you have a safety pantry blanket for when you know the wave's going to hit, right? So it's about preparation and also transferable skills when your body is less athletic. So obviously Delano has great like feel and committed to the pillars, absolutely, and that's why he gets a lot more money. But let's talk about what happens with Flynn, I guess, if because Flynn or Banton is in his final year of the contract. We talked about it in the trade tree study, right? So he needs an extension next year, just like Fred VanVleet off his first contract was for 2 years, right? So it's a similar mold and he's had a 4-year contract. So that's where I say the security and kind of he's kind of maybe sat on it a bit. And they're not guaranteed years, obviously, but I think the just the value and talent market, he knew it's all about like talent and then how much like you're paying that talent. It's all about that. And so technically maybe they hold him this year and push through the toughness and maybe cut some money somewhere else, like ask someone to take a bit of a pay cut, or they don't feel Gary Trent Jr. gets up to level enough, or Fred VanVleet needs to take less. But I don't. I think my numbers are pretty solid, and we're going to be looking at this situation where I think maybe Otto might move on if we want to hold Flynn. And that's where that kind of battle and money is kind of tied into in a sense, where we have to kind of choose over a couple guys, whether we keep certain guys or let certain guys go. And it's based on redundancies and stuff. And I think just ultimately the reason why Flynn hasn't gotten a lot of development burn also, we've needed Van Vliet in his role because he's so integral to winning. If let's say like if he could fit in the shooting guard position, he get more time. If he could hit those shots. So Deadeye, and I think there's also a path for Malachi. There's two paths. The point guard path, obviously, but then he's showing a bit like I've seen a little bit. He can come off screens a little bit quick. So maybe he goes for the JJ Redick model, which is a different amount of money and a different like journey through the NBA, but he still will stick. So I think ultimately it's just about how much he can really utilize his IQ and use that to be in better position so timing beats over the need for athleticism and quickness, right? And that's where I think IQ you can pre-plan and like do a lot of different things, which adds versatility to the team, which is always needed. But you can't have Michael Grange out there offering nothing, right? And I think Matt Thomas was a Granger, like he wasn't hitting his threes, wasn't playing D, so you can't really have him out there. They need to prove a certain level of consistency in practice enough for the coach to feel comfortable to even display or even put that player in a position where the winning might matter on that hinge on that possession because every possession matters. So it's not just oh let them burn and let's lose. No, that's not how things work. Every player, when you grab a whole bunch of guys that only want to win and you tell them not to win, that creates issues. And I think in the Tampa year, it did create some discontent among the players that really wanted to win. They, no matter what, they always want to win, and they had a hard time playing to lose. And I think we saw it discontent from Siakam. We saw Fred Van Vliet voice certain concerns on that point. Lowry kind of do it in his way, you know, but there were voices, key voices that were speaking out in a sense, this is not us, this is not what we're doing, and Masai stamped that by with the phrase Tampa tank. And I know, I guess Tampa, because tanking is it's bad for your culture. It's not the winning. You're not developing through winning. So imagine like your first 3 years, like they start tanking and you're like the first good pick they hit on, and then they tank for 3 years more. Your base is pretty much full of tanking, right? So your foundation is rot, in my opinion. And that's where you have players that don't turn out. It's not because they're not good enough. I think it's just because the teams don't know how to mold them properly. Hence, saying that there is certain patina on Masai guys, and that's why I think younger guys really want to come here and get that first 3 years at least, and then they have a better shot of making the roster. Like Utah got some recycle, like he was able to be recycled, like a lot of his skills, and he had the right mentality. Were able to be transferred, and we were able to use him as a stopgap, but let him kind of grow and develop more, because that's an opportunity to develop too for Otto. Even if he's here for 1 year, it's an opportunity to develop, right? Every player is looking at growing and getting more money. How do you do that? The real players know it's through hard work and understanding. Getting the right information is key. So let's look at where the whole precipice of the series kind of drew from, in a sense of linking the fates now with Delon and Flynn, right? So, okay, 2019 trade deadline. So let's get into the similar trade. So 2019 trade deadline. Marcus Saul, we heard Delon talk about this trade, traded for JV. So I'm not gonna touch on it. This video is too long. I'm not gonna touch on these guys. So Delon Wright, yeah, and CJ Miles, unfortunately, yeah, but he's came back with the podcast and brought that smoothie and a 2024 second. So this is actually the only pick that we have out there. So we need to lock that in and remember that it's a second round 2024, and that hasn't hit right yet, right? And we don't know what point that team is, but Masai was estimating we're going to be pretty good and full in form with vanvleet, OG, and Siakam's like better prime material. Obviously, OG just into his prime, but then more experienced prime from the other two. So, but then we also talked about the salary cap issues from keeping all these guys, and this was kind of, I'm going to recant and say that I do get some things wrong. I didn't see OG's defense growing to DYOP level, in a sense of looking like Kawhi, like literally like shades of Kawhi, where he's taking the ball so fast. Well, like before he used to kind of be slow on the gets, and I think his reaction speed has really upped. He's obviously put the work in, but his ball reaction speed, watching video, doing all that kind of stuff that entails building up a preset knowledge of movements and different things and understanding different openings and stuff that he can go for the steal, right? And it's all about that deciding, risk and reward, right? He knows some dribbles are riskier to go in on and others and stuff. And so I think now that he has such a more expanded knowledge and has been training like Kawhi and has been watching a lot of Kawhi film, he's finally translating that. And I thought he was already so good. Obviously, all defensive team, but DYOP level, or DPOY level. Wow, sorry. I don't know. Like, so I'm sorry, OG. Obviously, that changes the number for him, but I said he could pop, and we have to look at the salary dynamics a little bit differently. So, rewatching that and understanding OG might have to get a little more money next year on his extension is really key in looking at the numbers again, which I hope to do this year's extension, so the next off seasons extension series and do it every year, kind of updating different things and talk about the next level of progress in our main guys and what money things look like, and continue to explain out the money side, because I think that's really key. And once the roster starts changing after like the initial free agent signings and most of the roster spots are filled out, yeah, we flip around and pick up odd ends guys for the end of the roster, but you understand what we've developed and put into each guy. So the more you've been here, the more seniority. It's like about what you've learned as a sportsman, like Masai said in the one clip there. Okay, so let's continue. So I'll recant OG, but that's where this was in the 4D chess Masai play. My very first video, I was talking about this trade, and I had to explain it out with the salaries and understanding the pick dynamics. So I'm not going to go into that here. You got to watch the finale. Sorry. Like I said, I got to start doing that more and just not going on tangents to add more context, right? Sorry. Um, so a 20 mil player, this is how deals are structured, by the way. You're looking at options, but you have a kind of basic need in mind in a sense, and you have to cash in a starter at this point. You can't be a you can't you are unable to afford over 20 million, and these starter level guys, especially younger guys, cost more than 20 million. And I think we kind of penciled in about a $20 million amount needed in the next years to cover Precious and other. So, yeah. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. And the two picks are to kind of supplement that by bringing in low cost, high talent players to play around Scotty and stuff and add more to his ceiling. Because it's important your three guys at least be the same age or younger in a sense. If you have them older, it really screws up the timeline. They age out inappropriately. You're seeing the Spurs kind of what happened with them and stuff, and aging out players and needing replacements and signing and money. And it's all based on that kind of needing to step it up and scale up and predictable model your money out like that. So this is the point of trading for picks. Well, so like this is the this is OG, sorry, in the trade. And this is the player we need. And I just explained that part. We need a sustainable player that costs 20 mil but can fill in as a starter and be a great bench fit that we know isn't gonna add more to his game or need more money afterwards to hold on to him, and we can invest less time into him, right? More of a rehab project like Serge Ibaka in the same manner, right? I don't know what position or who that is. Only Masai's on the inside and knows like what he knows about certain players. He's not going to release that information about other teams' players and stuff and give away all his stuff, right? So okay, back to 18 to 20 million dollar player that's OG, and maybe Gary Trent I put into that thing. So one of them with Flynn makes the money real nice. And I think they might be aiming to shop package like that, maybe with a second round pick to beast up the Flynn part, because I know that's not juicy. And I said that before. Gary Trent Jr., Flynn, and another second, right, would work, because those guys technically don't fit the long term plan, and we're trading them for assets that we will mold. And there's a better talent pool in the high first round. Well, like I said, we can have it as top 10 protected, but 10 to 20 is a really special group, like we saw when we picked Scotty at 4. Think about a level under that where we could get his teammates, his running mates, and that's how you build a fit and around a team like that. So this is also part of the 2 years that we're taking. We're going to have to cash in a starter now that the salaries have ballooned to a point. You only have a certain room of cheap mentors and room to grow them on the rookie contract. And if they don't reach it, it starts to balloon numbers in a weird way. So that's why Masai is saying sometimes you have to choose to close the door. It's based on money, right? So okay, there it is. All right, the is Malachi the next Delon Wright? In my opinion, yeah. We'll see in time, and hopefully we'll get another part 4 where we get the answer to this question. And I think we're gonna have one final last thought. I like to have a nice little parting piece now, I guess, before housekeeping, you know. And this one's about the minutes and what happened with the minutes in last season and why Flynn didn't get a lot of minutes. A lot of rookies didn't get a lot of minutes. It's not because Nick is like a hierarchy, like crazy man that wants to push things all crazy and doesn't care about development. It's there's certain reasons. And let's hear Masai explain minutes.
Sometimes, it's both of what you've said. Is some players develop faster than some others, and we saw Malachi do a little bit of it towards the end of the year, and that's on Malachi. That's on us. That's on coaching. That's on everything, right? It's a combination of everything. I think we've because these guys that we had that were in that top 7, top 8 needed to have a lot of development too. It needed it. There's no question about it. We needed to see Pascal in these situations. We needed to see Fred in these situations, OG, Boucher, all those guys. And you have to do it intensely. You have to do it, you have to be intentional, about these things. And that was an understanding with all of us. Yes, we get into coaching, and obviously Nick is going to coach. I'm never going to tell Nick how to coach or what to do, and I think he got the best out of those players in some ways. Now, the guys from 7 to 13 that you are saying, they'll develop some more. Like these things sometimes take time with different levels of players, and hopefully some more time, and they'll develop even more. Could we see more?
So housekeeping. Oh wow, this one just got way out of hand. But I just wanted to finish this topic. I made the mistake of kind of like promoting my future kind of work and not understanding that I might not get to that work in time and learning about how to promote what I'm doing properly. I'm sorry about this video. I'm going to try to keep it closer to the hour mark. Like I said, you can speed up some of my older stuff if you want to go back and build up that knowledge base properly too, in a sense of terms of what I'm talking about and different ideas and stuff. But always salute the Raptors Freak Nation and Lex 9:30 a.m. Great, great subsection of the positive kind of critical, really high IQ basketball fans learning together and really conversating about real basketball, not 2K crazy talk and stuff like that. So I hope to see you guys there. I know this one got a bit long. I'm sorry. Logical Phase 2 starting next week. And every Saturday will be my drop day. Confirmed now. I'm cementing that. And time wise, during the early afternoon, you can look for it. So I know YouTube's going to be crazy with not putting my videos out there or getting them to see or you seeing them unless you like them and stuff because it's sometimes about you have to tell YouTube what you like and then they'll show you when the new videos come out or they might not display it on all the videos on your subs and that's how it works based on the videos you like. Those are the videos that pop up or the ones you've watched the most and stuff. So liking does help you kind of keep in track, but also make sure you kind of don't miss a week, or if you don't see it pop up, like you might need a reminder to make sure to tune in because there's a lot of stuff going on. And watch later list is a great thing, like to kind of, if you see a video pop up, you can go to the side, put watch later, and then when you have more free time, a lot of my videos are really good for that watch later list when you have the time and it's more downtime where there's not a whole other videos to kind of keep you up and kind of on more current stuff, and you can go back and kind of learn things that are still age appropriate because they age well in time, so they're always kind of like age appropriate in a sense till obviously when the time when salaries change. But I think a lot of the recipe videos and the things in the timeless info always usable playlist is that it's a combination, obviously, develop Raptors developing value series, which is also timeless in a sense of understanding that dynamics of developing and the mainline ideas and building blocks of different things. And I just hope that everyone just enjoys, and I hope you just like my mission in True Championship for Project Truth. I'm gonna have a little new intro edit. Project Truth is mainly just trying to teach people how to read the truth and know the truth better when they hear it, right? From other people. And I just want everyone to kind of, if you don't agree with my opinions, see the concepts and certain ideas that are correct, that are echoed by other people, and maybe use them in your mainline thinking from my base evidence and have your own theory. Like CJ Miles does comment a lot of things I said here, but he doesn't go into it the extent I do. So the deep dives are more just bits and then expanding on that and adding the full context of what's being talked about and what's being said in a sense. And I think Masai is a great guy to kind of decipher off what he says. So I think there'll be a lot of Masai returning clips because I think when I see Masai talk, I can hear him talking in a whole bunch of different trends at the same time and hear it once and take it in like that and refer back to that and kind of link up different timelines with that same message because he is talking about a bunch of different things all at once because he's such a great leader and linguist that his IQ level, he's able to talk to people in a certain way, and that's his it factor. And I think in a sense of how convincing and how embracing and a convincing leader that stands for the right things, that's what a great leader matters. And I think Masai, trust in Masai. I end it there. Thank you everyone for liking, commenting, supporting, subbing. We're almost at 85 now. Sweet, sweet. Never even thought I'd get, like I said, like 10 or 15 before. We were at like 50 a couple videos back, right? So we're definitely growing the right way, slowly but surely. And I think even like word of mouth stuff, like point people to the right, correct information. Not even just my stuff, the other truth kind of content, and help them like know where the resources are of different ideas and different true videos, the true Project True content that a lot of people deliver. I think Freak Lex is definitely one of those Project Truth guys. And he's actually claimed Project Truth, unlike a lot of people where I've just kind of like hand down the feeling they already produce and have producing forever. Hence, the champions of logical phase two, the ones that have not necessarily had channels, have been talking to people in real life for the last 20 years and stuff, and doing the right things, talking positive, knowing the true storylines, and trying to help people see through the kind of bull and hype that marketing and promotion news has become. It's like I said, like it's a movie trailer accuracy, right? With they don't care if it doesn't picture the truth as long as they get the views. And I think that's the opposite of Project Truth. And Project Truth is stating the truth because that's the truth in that time. And I just want to thank everyone for riding. And we're gonna go full steam Project Truth Logical Phase 2. Next one, Coloco, first good one. Yeah. On Coloco, well, I've talked about him in a sense in the previous videos. If you can go back to my sneak hints, you can figure out what video is coming. So, sneak hint drop, interesting. All right, video's gotten too long. Peace out. Mike G, Mike drop, Logical Raptors Fanatic out. Last 2 hour video.